So now let's talk about the print function, the input function, and what while true loops are. These are foundational components to many of the labs and examples we do for these Silicon Dojo classes, and they're really simple. And one of the things that I like about these things is that it gives you basically interactivity with the scripts that you're creating. Basically, what the print function does is it prints something out to your terminal screen. Hello world, or whatever else, right? It's going to print text out. The input function, what that's going to do is it's going to take an input from you. It's going to ask you, the user, whatever it is, to basically put an input in. It will then take that value, it will turn it into a variable value, and then you can do things with that. And then the while true loop, what a while true loop is basically it's a loop that never ends, right? So basically what happens is you start with a while true loop, you open it up with a while true loop, and then you put code underneath that's going to do something, and then that's just going to continuously loop. So in the example that we'll do today, we'll have a while true loop. We'll use the input function to ask, basically what do you want the computer to say, and then it will print out what the computer says based off of that, and then it will loop to ask you what you wanted to say again, and it will print it out, and it will keep looping. So it gives you that dynamic environment that's getting an input from the user. You're then able to do something with it with a Python script, and it keeps going. So the print function is incredibly easy to use. Basically, you call the print function, and if you want to print out a string, so basically text that you put in there, you open with a single quotation mark, you put whatever the string is, you close with a single quotation mark, and that will print it out. Or you can print out a variable value, so you can create a variable such as message. You create what the message is, so a single quotation mark, message, close single quotation mark, and then we can call the value of the message by saying print, and then simply the variable name. So here's the first example in VS Code. So we're going to say print, parentheses, single quotation marks, hello world, right? All we have to do then is we run this, and then we'll see here down in the terminal, it is going to print out hello world. Now this is the second example. So here we have a variable name. So we're going to create a variable called message. It is going to be equal to hello world. So single quotation marks around hello world. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to print simply whatever the value of the message is. Now notice there are no single quotation marks here because we're calling the variable name itself. And when we run this, what we're going to see is, again, we get hello world yet again. Now the important thing with this is I have saved this as example.py, so do make sure if you're using VS Code to save this as some script name with .py at the end, and then you'll be able to run this simply by hitting that little triangle over on the right hand side. Now the input function is very easy to use too. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to create a variable name. So whatever the name of the variable that you want to assign the value that's being inputted to. And then we're going to say the variable name equals, we call the input function. We have the parentheses, as we do before. Then basically this is going to be the prompt. What prompt do you want to ask of the user? Put in an IP address, put in a host name, say something, whatever, right? So the single quotation marks, type something, then hit enter, colon, in single quotation marks. So this is what the prompt is going to be. And then what we're going to do is we're going to print out the value of that variable. So here we have the script within VS Code. I'm going to run the script. When I run the script, right, it is now going to say, type something, then hit enter. So I'm going to say, hello world, with a lot of exclamation points, because that's what we do when we're teaching people how to program. When I hit enter, I am then printing out the value that I inputted here. So basically, text equals whatever the input value is, and then we're simply going to print that input value out onto the screen. And then finally for this lesson is the while true loop, right? So this is where we're going to have a code block. So we're going to do while true, and then we're going to do the colon, and then we are going to have the code under that. With a while true loop, what this is going to be is it's going to be a code loop that is going to keep going and basically have no end. So this is what the while true loop looks like when you write it out in VS Code. So while true, colon, Then we say name, so that's going to be whatever the variable name we want it to be is, and it's going to equal the input from the screen. Type a name and hit enter. We're then going to print out on the screen, and we're going to use something called an F string. We are going to have a class on this in the future. Basically, this is a way to concatenate text. What concatenation means is essentially being able to superglue variable values and static text together in order to create one long string. So here we have F, basically that's how you start an F string, single quotation marks as you do. Then we're going to say hello, you do the curly brackets and then put in the variable name that you want to put there, and so this is going to say hello Bob, hello Sue, hello Tim, so on and so forth. So basically with this, if we rerun the script from up there, type a name and hit enter, so I type in Bob, it's going to say hello Bob. Then it's going to ask for a name again. I type in Tim, it's going to say hello Tim, ask for a name, hello Sue, so on and so forth. And so with this while true loop, it is going to continuously run until you break it using some other technique, because we actually haven't written a break to this code. So if you're going to try to break this, there are a couple of ways to do it. If you're in VS Code, what you're going to do is you're just going to simply click on the trash can icon, right? So this is running here. I click on the trash can icon and it goes away. It is done, no more problems, right? Beyond that though, let's say if you're in the terminal or something like that, and you're sitting here and you don't know how to get out of it, Control Z will get you out of it. So if you do Control Z, that will exit out. With different scripts, there might be different things that you might have to type in, such as Control X or whatever. There's almost always a command key that you're able to use in order to get out of Python scripts. You just might have to do a particular Google search for whatever you're doing, but Control Z will get you out of these while true loops. So that's all there is to the print function, the input function, and the while true loop. Again, these are foundational components in Silicon Dojo because I like to create scripts for students that are interactive, where it feels like you're really doing something with the computer versus writing out a lot of static information and just hitting the run button. By having this where you're able to type things in and see what happens, I feel like that's a little bit more exciting than how a lot of other people teach things. And so with print and input and while true loops, this gives you the ability to have that kind of interactive functionality for when we start actually doing some interesting things with Python in future classes.